Hi, everyone. Good morning. I know it is a bit early, right? But I think it is great to start talking about green, right, in early morning. And thank you very much, Floris, for your very kind introduction, right? So first question, we want to zoom in the location of our research, our topic, right? So why Yancheng? Why this salt city all of a sudden became the national leader in offshore wind power in China? So I've listed some amazing numbers about the recent achievements of this salt city, right? By 2024, the installed offshore wind power capacity of Yancheng reached 5.54 gigawatts, right? That is a very amazing number. And it actually reached 14.9% of the national installed offshore wind power capacity of China, which is, if we have a global look of that number, actually Yancheng by itself has this 7.4% of the global installed offshore wind power globally. So, it was like, if we have like about 13 to 14 Yancheng, basically that is the global installed offshore wind power, right, capacity. And it itself produced over 40% of offshore wind turbines in China. So it is not only a site of, offshore wind farms, but also it is the manufacturing center of this industry, of this thriving green industry. And that is why I think it is a very important and representative case study of the state-business relations in contemporary China, and how the government and how the business collaborated together to kickstart this green transition. Right? Yeah, next slide. So let's. Is there like another slide in between? Yes. Okay, great. Yeah. I remember. I must have a slide in between, right? To show you the location of this beautiful city, this green city of China. So Yancheng is, if we look at the map of China, Yancheng, of course, it is situated on the coastline, but it is nothing really like, really stands out. China has a very long coastline. You have so many cities, and why it is so unique, right? If we look at the map, so the right-hand side, this is a map of province of Jiangsu. Well, Yancheng is, not too far from the provincial capital Nanjing, not too far from the economic center of China, Shanghai. But it is still, we think about that is a very average, very ordinary city. And why it achieved such accomplishments? Well, that is very interesting, right? Very interesting. So next slide. There is also a slide before, yeah. Okay, great. So let's zoom out once more, right? Let's zoom out. So China had, of course, when we're talking about industrial policies in China, we need to look at, the actors at the center, the actors at the top, right, of the Chinese governance. We need to talk about the national policy landscape for renewable energy. And first of all, we have this list of the very important legislations, regulations, and policies, and how the national government actually pushed forward the development of renewable energy, right? Well, that is most importantly, there is the law, the renewable energy law of the People's Republic of China, which was enacted in 2009. Then you have, China still has this, the institution for planning economy, right? You have all these 5-year plans, right, from 2006 to 2025, so which is this year. and continuously carried out this agenda of green transition and to promote the development of offshore wind power capacity. But these are laws, these are plans, these are economic plans. When you need to execute the law and economic plans, you need the policies, right? So from the State Council, you have the decision. From the General Office of the State Council, you have the action plan, right? Then from the specific department, the National Development and Reform Commission, which is the top Chinese economic planner, and also the National Energy Administration, you have these two policy documents actually quite important in the development of wind power capacity in China. So on-grid tariff policy for wind power, fixed tariff period, basically the single most important role of that policy document is to carry out, to implement a subsidy system for wind, for fostering wind power development. But by the year of 2019, interestingly, they actually lifted the subsidy. They actually issued this notice on actively promoting work related to subsidy-free grid parity for wind power and for photovoltaic power generation, right? That means that they believed the industry is already matured, then you don't need the subsidy anymore. But we still don't see like how the specific mechanism actually is materializing this green transition, right? This development of wind power capacity. So let's look at the provincial level. So next slide. The previous, yeah. When we move forward, we also sometimes move backward, right? Often happens. And if we look at the provincial policy landscape, it actually matches with the national policies, right? You have the provincial energy development 5-year plans, right? From 2016 to 2020, well, 20 all these years. Then you have the 5-year plan for renewable energy development. So we see Jiangsu province is actually very focusing on developing renewable energy development. And also we have this 5-year plan for offshore wind power development and other specific action points or policy documents. And very interestingly, I think I have to emphasize this last document. This is a report, basically report drafted by the Hohai University, University in Jiangsu back in 2008 as part of a World Bank project to carry out a study on the 11th 5-year development plan for wind power generation of Jiangsu province. That was the first document, first report, policy report to inform the policymakers about how to develop wind power capacity in Jiangsu. So we see on the provincial level, it has always been very supportive to develop renewable energy, especially wind power, right? But that still didn't really explain why Yancheng, right? We have the policy support from the national level, the provincial level. What it is like really happening on the local level, right? Next slide. Yes. So, let's also zoom out a bit, away from the role of government. Let's look at the advantages of Yancheng. I think the most important thing about Yancheng, it has this the blessing of resource endowment, right? The municipality has this long coastline, 582 kilometers, and the average annual wind speed is more than 7.6 meters per second at a height of 100 meters offshore. So that's a quite good number, right, for developing such an industry. And you have the annual equivalent full load hours, that is 3,000 to 3,600, right? And next slide. But China has this long coastline, right? Why Yancheng though? Still didn't explain. Yancheng actually has this late move advantagement. We often talk about if you start this industry early, you occupy a top position in the supply chain or in the industry, then you really can make a lot of profits. But that is actually different from the logic of Yancheng. It is a late mover. So the city, the municipal government tried to avoid competing in matured industries. If we look at the province of Jiangsu, especially it is a proximate position with Shanghai, we know that there must be like a huge inflow of foreign investment, right? Since late 1970s because of reform opening in China, right? And also southern part of Jiangsu is was quite great to build a lot of private-owned enterprises from entrepreneurs. So Yancheng is actually bit far from the center of private investment and also foreign investment. That is also actually a good that is also works as an advantage for Yancheng. So you don't compete in those matured sectors. You don't compete in the traditional manufacturing sectors, right? So the municipal government targeted the underdeveloped sectors. And because of the underdevelopment, it had these cheaper prices for land and labor. And next slide. Yes, and of course, the top-down support from the central government is also quite important here in the story. So back in 2011, Yancheng was selected by the central government as a national pilot city for the clustered development of the offshore wind power industry. So selected as a pilot city, what does that mean? The central government back then, around 15 years ago, selected a dozen of pilot cities to develop such industry. But after 5 years, after 10 years, Yancheng eventually was winning out of the competition. Then it is now the center of wind power industry in China. The national or the international conferences is held by Yancheng annually nowadays. Next slide. So we've talked about like the advantages of Yancheng, the policy support from the provincial and the national level. And what really happened, in the last 20 years on the ground of this coastal municipality, right? I think the most important thing, of course, the top-down support, policy support in China is very important for one city's economic development. But we've also talked about like, the national government selected a dozen of pilot cities. Why Yancheng actually was winning out? All these cities had coastal lines, right? They actually encourage a tournament of local governments. That is also very representative for industrial development in China in the past few decades, right? In 2006, the first wind farm was built by Guohua. It was like a subsidiary of a central SOE in Dongtai city. We can see actually it's here. It is like a southern county city in Yancheng, right? But in 2000, they were actually the first mover in the Yancheng municipality. But however, in 2009, when Dafeng district, the middle region, right? The Dafeng district attracted Goldwind Technology, actually is a private-owned enterprise, to build its testing center for wind turbines. Then the Dafeng district government, of course, built infrastructure and industrial park before Goldwind moved in. What does this tell us? Actually, all these districts, all these counties, all these like smaller administrative units under Yancheng, they were also, competing against each other, and they had differentiated strategies to develop offshore wind energy, sector. So when Dongtai first moved in, Dafeng, okay, we understand the situation. We are not gonna, invite another state-owned enterprise. Let's invite a private-owned enterprise. Let's don't do the wind farm first. Let's do the testing center first. Maybe we can develop another, supply chain in our area, right? Then Sheyang County, we see Sheyang County is like up north on the coastline, employed a differentiated strategy again in 2016-17. So Sheyang was really a late mover in this game, right? It invited the Envision Group, another private-owned enterprise, as an anchor firm to build its flagship plant. So let's don't talk about wind farms. Let's don't talk about what's that called, the testing capacity first. Let's just go straight to manufacturing, right? And attracted other companies because that is a quite leader in the industry. It attracted other companies to invest because of its leading position in the industry. Next slide. So basically, all these localities, they had incentives to compete each other because from the municipality level, from the provincial level, the officials from those municipalities, if they do very well in this economic competition, they get pluses, right? They get basically the scores in terms of like future career advancement, right? In the political system. So they are very much incentivized. And also all these localities, they tried to attract SOEs to invest. And why is that very important for the local governments to do so? Because actually, you see, the first wind farm in Yancheng, in Dongtai, was built basically by Guohua. It was it is a subsidiary company of China Energy. And why is that? Because large SOEs, they are more risk-taking because they have more resources, and also because sustainable development, also like renewable energy sector in China became this political mission. It became political goal of the national government. So naturally, all these SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, they need to invest. Even they lose some money, it is okay. They are fulfilling their political mission here. So the localities, they strategically attracted those SOEs as basically the foundations to develop these industries. That is quite important in this story. And also the SOEs, because they have been long invested, embedded in the industries, they have higher level of R&D, usually investment here. And the next slide. Yeah, and also this is also quite important for the industry actually to quickly materialize, on the local level, is to streamline the administrative procedures. I'm just giving like few examples, I think, from this story. If like across all these localities, we see this kind of phenomenon. The municipal government or the county government, they set up interdepartmental teams to approve administrative applications from companies to collectively. For example, they basically put like officials from the energy bureau, from the reform what's that called, Reform and Development Commission, right, from the Environmental Protection Bureau, even from Public Health Bureau, all these from the Labor Protection Bureau, and all the officials in a team. Then the companies maybe just need to like apply once with all the documents. They can prove at the same time. They can check the errors collectively. Then actually they can speed up the administrative procedure. And also, like I see these kind of examples when I was interviewing like the local stakeholders. They appoint a liaison officer to coordinate the administrative approvals for the transportation logistics of industrial equipment. Because for those manufacturing the plants, they often need to like order like large amount of industrial equipment or like to ship them away. Then you often encounter you need to have administrative approvals to transport those industrial equipment. How to speed this up? So inside the government they have this person usually is acting as a liaison officer. They can tell the companies how to act. Then that person could be also someone to push the other departments inside the government to quickly approve all the applications. And of course, the local government provide tax exemptions within the scope permitted by law, and also establish an internal inspection mechanism to prevent excessive bureaucratic formalities and minimize disruptions to business operations. They have this kind of like campaign style inspection to inspect whether the local, like the lower levels or the departments of the government, whether they are like, avoiding like excessive bureaucratic formalities. Next slide. And we've looked at the national and provincial policy landscape and the advantages of Yancheng as a city, as a locality, and also role of local governments played in this economic story. But what was the business strategy here, right? Because when you need to have one industry is flourishing in your city, you really need the firms, the companies, right, to make money, to use their advantage, right? We see a differentiated strategies between basically the SOEs, the state-owned enterprises, and the private-owned enterprises. So when we look at the SOEs, they are usually the first movers to invest. They usually are more advanced in terms of R&D development, research and development, and they are very important player in the supply chain. They can, once make big orders of, like, for example, wind turbines, right? But what really the private-owned enterprises do in this kind of story, they are pretty good at, quickly developing things, right? They have more business incentives than the state-owned enterprises. So what they usually do is they usually focus on the manufacturing side of wind turbines, right? And to collaborate with state-owned enterprises, because the state-owned enterprises really have the R&D capacity, and the smaller private-owned enterprises specialize on manufacturing parts and providing maintenance services to the wind farms. Yes. Next slide. I think there are some quick, lessons, if we can call so, for Dutch and the EU policymakers here. So I think, of course, like, we're talking about the Netherlands, the European Union, like all these member states, and also China, all these different polities have very different political systems, very different social environments, right? Very different legal landscapes. But there are, of course, I think there are certain things could be learned from each other if, we don't get into like the too complicated issues right here. So I think the advantage of this, the Yancheng's experience is from the national or the regional governments could establish, pilot projects across, field localities, and let those encourage the competition among local authorities, the localities, then select the winner. That is, I think, a viable option, right, to boost industrial development in specific sector and to really streamline administrative procedures. I mean, China was not really good at particularly, streamlining the administrative procedure a couple decades ago. But nowadays, especially in recent 5-10 years, we see there's this really a leap forward on this front, which could be very helpful for the local business actors, stakeholders to basically to have their business materialized on ground, right? So this is my brief discussion of the topic. And thank you very much, and looking forward for your questions and comments. Yeah, thank you.